Welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show, and this is where we claw through corruption and we swat down the lies and we purr loudly for the truth. We purr loudly for the truth, family, and freedom under God. This is the Conservative Cat Show. Be sure to subscribe right now, hit the notification bell, and go ahead and go to patriotpumpenergy.com. Buy your bottle of Patriot Pump Energy today using promo code ConservativeCat at checkout. Best promo code out there, Conservative Cat, $10 off. We've got a lot to get to today, so I am just going to jump right on in. Breaking, RFK Jr. has declared war on insurance red tape. We're fixing prior authorization, so we're going to get to that. Plus, SB 1862. This is the bill that could finally make you a homeowner. For real. So we're going to get to that one. Senator Neil Anderson, state senator, has introduced that bill. And then I also want to get to government crushing the hemp industry, and they are protecting big marijuana. Full disclosure, I did not want to see marijuana legalized. Now they're scrambling, and of course they're coming to the protection of big marijuana, and they're shutting down small entrepreneurs and businesses. And I just want to say, I told you so. I knew this was going to happen once they legalized it. All right, let's get to today's show. Why is American healthcare so expensive? Why is it? Today's show, I want to ask you that question. Throw it into the comment section. Why do you think American healthcare is so expensive? We hear the excuses all the time, right? Oh, it's the cost of innovation. Oh, it's the malpractice lawsuits. Oh, it's capitalism. These are all the reasons why people say the American healthcare system is so expensive and American healthcare is so expensive. Wrong. Healthcare is expensive because it's one of the most government-distorted markets in existence. So when the government gets in bed with these corporate giants, they start charging you like you're an unlimited piggy bank. It's because there is your tax dollars. So they have tax dollars. This is a government subsidized industry, heavily subsidized. And I want to talk about prior authorization today because RFK Jr. has promised to fix prior authorization. And none of the promises that they've made, these big corporations, have actually come to fruition. They've never actually lowered costs, although they've promised it year after year after year, and I'm going to get to the facts around that. But when it comes to money never running out, which is your tax dollars, nobody's really held accountable, and the price of care is always going to go up and up and up and up as long as they have you, the piggy bank, the taxpayer. So what is prior authorization? That's what's in the news today. Let's start very simple. Prior authorization is when the insurance company tells you, wait, we'll let you know if we can cover that test. We'll let you know if we can cover that surgery or that prescription. Sit tight while we check the fine print. So this was sold to the public as a cost-saving tool, and it should be. Insurance is a risk-based industry, much like car insurance. You have to figure out, hey, is this person, if we pay for these unnecessary costs, we're not keeping the money for it, or unnecessary surgery. So say like somebody wants to get plastic surgery or bottom surgery if they're transgender. Is this a necessary surgery? Okay. Or can we prioritize our money, because this is how insurance, it's all pooling money from people, and they have to dole that money out based on necessity. And it was pitched to us, prior authorization was pitched to us as a way to prevent unnecessary care, and it was going to be a cost-saving tool. But in practice, really, this is a gatekeeping tool. It's used to stall treatment, hoping that you'll give up, go away, or pay out of pocket. That's what prior authorization has become. I don't think we should outright ban it like we have here in the state of Illinois. They've attempted to ban it. This is a tactic that can be used in a risk-based industry, and it should be used as a cost savings tool and a way to prevent unnecessary care. It's not fair that somebody is waiting for cancer treatment when you have people who are, I don't know, getting like a Brazilian butt lift or whatever. I don't know. Okay. So that's not fair. And it should be used as a cost saving tool and as a way to prevent unnecessary care. But this tactic only exists because there's so much bureaucracy in that system that doctors don't even have control of their own medicine anymore. So they have to go to the bureaucrats to decide whether or not to treat you. That's how bloated the American healthcare system has come with bureaucracy. Your doctor cannot make a decision anymore. They have to go to the bureaucrats in the suits and the pencil pushers in the suits. Why? Because healthcare is no longer a relationship between you and your doctor. It's a triangle. It's you, your doctor, and a web of bureaucrats who don't care if you live, heal, or suffer because they already got paid. So what's in the news today? RFK Jr. has declared war on prior authorization. I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to get to this because I don't think that this is actually going to do much. I mean, good for RFK Jr. He's trying to crack down on this, but they've made promises that they were going to reform prior authorization before, and they've never done it. I think that we have to stop pretending that we can fix a system that is inherently broken by design. And I'll get to that here in just a second, but let's take a listen to RFK Jr.
Dr. Oz pointed out 85% of Americans say that they have had delays in healthcare because of prior authorization. And the doctors hate it. Doctors report that it cost them 12 to 15 hours a week filling out forms. Some nurses are spending over half their time dealing with the administrative burden of this. And healthcare is often delayed to Americans. The cost of administration is enormous to our healthcare system, and we're going to be able to eliminate a lot of those costs by what we're doing today. Dr. Oz pointed out.
Okay, so that's in the news today. RFK Jr., now the Human Health Secretary, or Human Services Secretary, he has struck a deal with big insurance companies in the country, and he said that they have agreed to streamline prior authorizations. Okay, so I'm going to break down what that means. Who's on board? Blue Cross, Cigna, United Health, Humana, basically all of the usual suspects of the health insurance cartel. So what did they exactly promise? Well, they said faster digital authorizations by 2027. Okay, they're going to honor your previous approvals. So if you get approved through the prior authorization process for a test or for a surgery, when you change plans, that approval will carry over for 90 days. So if you change plans from, I don't know, Blue Cross and you change plans or you change jobs to Cigna, that test is still authorized for 90 days. Medical professionals will review the denials. So if they refuse your prescription or if they refuse your test or your surgery, medical professionals will review those denials, even though they already claim that they already do that, but this is part of the deal. So that's RFK Jr. striking a deal with the health insurance cartel, Blue Cross, Cigna, United Health, whatever. Medical professionals, like I said, are going to have to review those denials, although they were already supposed to be doing that. Here's the truth. I don't think that this is going to be real reform. I think that this is optics. I love RFK Jr., love what he's attempting to do. It is a problem, prior authorization, because like I said, it's no longer a cost savings measure or tool. This is more of a way to, I don't know, gatekeep. Okay, and it's more bureaucracy. And I don't think that there's really any fixing this because this is a system that is completely broken by design. So here's what I mean by that. These changes aren't going to lower your premiums, okay, to prior authorization, okay? They won't reduce your deductible. They won't stop your local hospital from charging you $5,000 for a 15-minute ER visit. None of that is going to happen with this prior authorization. Okay, this is just like trying to fix you not being able to be seen by a doctor, you not being able to get your surgery because they keep punting it off. Okay, that's what this is supposed to fix, but I really don't think that it's going to get fixed because it's broken by design, the system. Have you ever wondered why an aspirin costs $12? Okay, you can get an entire bottle of aspirin at Walgreens, but if you go to the hospital and they give you an aspirin, it's $12 a pill. Okay, have you ever wondered why an ambulance ride costs $3,000? Have you ever wondered why a CT scan costs $2,000 when the machine was paid off 10 years ago? Okay, this isn't healthcare, or because healthcare is not the free market, is not a free market. It's a government subsidized feeding frenzy. And until we fix that, the healthcare system is going to remain broken. So you see, when the federal government promises to cover everybody's costs through Medicaid, Medicare, Obama subsidies, and now employer mandates, where they're mandating employers to cover your health care, they're basically writing a blank check. And what happens when businesses know that the government is going to be footing the bill and the government has endless supplies of dollars, right? Because they can just increase your taxes. They charge more, right? So we have to get government out of it completely. Medicare, Medicaid. I know people are going to be like, what? How could you say that, Kat? People are starting to do this, and it's going to be cheaper where doctors, nurses, they leave the entire system and they just charge cash for their services. And it's cheaper, it's affordable, and doctors have that relationship with their parents, and it's no longer this triangle relationship. It's a relationship between doctor and patient. They inflate prices because they can. Okay, that's what the healthcare system does. Doctors and nurses, they're not getting rich. They're buried in paperwork. And the real winners here are the insurance CEOs, the government contractors, the hospital administrators, the pharma execs, and yes, the politicians who are getting kickbacks and campaign donations from this industry. So there's no the only real winners are the people at the tippity top and the bureaucrats, the hospital administrators, the DEI director of the hospital, okay, and these pharma execs and the insurance CEOs, and of course the politicians who then get the money funneled right back into their campaign coffers. So it's like a mafia. Okay, the taxpayers pay, the bureaucrats skim, and the patient gets rationed care. This is a mafia. It's just like a mafia. The taxpayers pay, bureaucrats skim, and then the patient, they get rationed care despite paying taxes, but despite paying premiums and whatever it is. Okay, so the government is not supposed to be there to help people to afford care because healthcare is not a human right. Okay, but they always say government is supposed to be here because we're going to provide you health care and we're going to provide you affordable health care. Every single time the government says that, costs explode. Okay, every single time the government comes in and says we've come up with an affordable health care bill and this is going to be, it always gets bloated every time the government steps in. So before Medicaid and Medicare in the 1960s, medical care was actually really affordable. The doctors actually made house calls and they would come to your house. Okay. And the government, this was when the government wasn't pumping your money, federal tax dollars into the system and making the prices of everything explode because these businesses know that there's an endless supply of money and they can charge whatever the hell they want. $50 for a box of tissues at the hospital, which is just ridiculous. So then came the employer-based insurance mandates. Okay, so the Affordable Care Act regulations and now Medicare Advantage, this private-public fusion. It's just nasty. And here's the kicker. With all this help, the average American now pays over $20,000 a year in premiums. With all this help, right? The government says, oh, we're going to help you afford health care. The average American family now pays $20,000 in premiums. And you still need to get permission to get an x-ray via prior authorization. This is bullcrap. Okay, what kind of scam is that? You're paying $20,000 a year and you can't get health care at all. It's a total scam. And this isn't capitalism, by the way. This is cronyism, and the government is the getaway driver. And I want to take a step back and look through the biblical lens here. Okay, in Matthew 25, Jesus talks about caring for the sick. He doesn't say, set up a federal bureaucracy. No. He says, I was sick and you visited me in Matthew 25. It's personal, it's compassionate, it's local. But now we've handed our care, the care of the most vulnerable people in our society, to a machine, to a bureaucratic machine. It's cold, it's industrial, and worst of all, it's godless. There is no God in these places. And let's be clear, the dignity of the human person is being trampled. The patient isn't treated like a child of God anymore. They're a line item, they're a risk assessment, they're a claim number. And that's why on this show, I'm going to say it loud and clear. If you care about life, liberty, and faith, you cannot trust a healthcare system that runs on federal power and endless tax dollars. Because this system is just broken inherently because of the way it is. I mean, we've got to get rid of Medicaid, Medicare. Before we did it before in the 1950s, right? Before the 1960s, we can do it again. So what's the alternative? You're probably wondering, okay, if we got rid of Medicare, Medicaid, what would that even look like, Kat? That's pretty crazy. End federal control over healthcare. Get the government out of the pricing, out of the mandates, stop mandating employers what they've got to pay, because ultimately the employers that are going to pay the most for their employees' healthcare privately, right? Private healthcare, if those employers are going to pay that, they're going to be the ones who get the most employees ultimately. So it's free market, and you're going to want to pay for your employees' healthcare if you're an employer, because most likely more people are going to want to work for you, and the more people that want to work for you, the better your business is going to do. So we just need free market. That's really what we need, and we need to get the government out of the pricing entirely. Bring transparency. Every hospital should be posting their prices. Every insurer should list their denial rates, and there needs to be more direct care. More and more doctors are moving towards this like black bag doctor thing. I don't know if you have noticed this, but there is no insurance. They just ask for cash. So the doctors, they've left this entire system, the healthcare system, and they said, screw you. I'm not going to be a cog in this system. I want to actually have a relationship with my patients, and I want it to be a doctor-patient relationship, not this weird triangle with the bureaucrats. So what they said is no insurance, just service for cash. And guess what? It's affordable. I've done it before, where you pay $55 a month and there's no insurance, nothing like that. You pay $55 a month. I mean, it sucks that my tax dollars are going to Medicaid, Medicare, right? It's still, but you get this cash, and then they come out to you, and it's a black bag type doctor. And this is becoming more and more mainstream. I think we need to switch over to that and think about that. The best doctors are going to make the most money. So there's going to be this free market of, hey, I need to provide quality care. But why does the government hate that? It's because they can't control it. Because these doctors can go and take care of people, and these people in exchange will pay them. It's very simple. We've made it very complicated and bloated for no reason other than they want control. So we need to stop subsidizing the monopolies, United Healthcare, Cigna, Humana. If they can't survive without your tax dollars, let them fail. Let doctors be doctors again. Let patients make decisions, and let the market, not some DC committee, restore sanity. We need to get the government dollars out. All right. So healthcare is expensive because it's no longer healthcare. It's federally funded. It's a racket. It's a scam. Okay. And the hospital knows Uncle Sam is going to be paying for everything and anything, and they will charge whatever price they want, knowing that Uncle Sam is going to pay for it. So while RFK Jr., he talks about fixing prior authorization, which is great, but it's like fixing holes on the Titanic, patching up holes on the Titanic. It's a sinking ship. The whole ship is built on a lie. The lie that central planning and government can heal the sick. Government cannot heal the sick. This is supposed to be an interpersonal relationship between you and the doctor, and you get to pick what doctor you like, and you get to pay that doctor with money in exchange for services to you. I mean, it's a very simple, but we've made it really, really complicated. Only local control, family choice, and God-given liberty can do that. Government cannot heal the sick. As Matthew 25 pointed out, Jesus, he talks about this. He doesn't say, yeah, set up a federal bureaucracy for your sick. No, he says, I was sick and you visited me. That is the way healthcare ought to be. Black bag type doctors. That's what they did in the 1950s, way before Medicare and Medicaid. And we should go back to it. I know that might be controversial. I really don't give a damn. All right, let's get to property taxes, because today is I want to talk about something that touches every single homeowner and honestly every American who's sick and tired of not owning anything. Let me ask you something. If you've paid off your home, you've paid off your property, you're still paying property taxes. Have you been paying property taxes for 30 years, 40 years, even 50 years? Shouldn't that house be yours? If you paid off your house, that house should be yours. Why the hell do I have to continue to pay property taxes? One Illinois senator is standing up and saying, yes, if you've paid off your house and you've paid your property taxes for at least 30 years, then that house had to be yours. Now, property taxes, I am fundamentally against them in general. I don't think that sales tax, that is what it used to be. Property taxes is relatively new historically. And I just disagree with it vehemently, because it's based on this idea that you'll never be able to truly own your property and that your property can be taken away from you if you don't pay these taxes. And that is not a right to property, okay, as promised to us as Americans. You have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You have property rights. Senate Bill 1862, this is why it matters. It exposes one of the biggest lies in the American government, the lie that homeownership, that there is such a thing as homeownership in the age of property taxes. There is no such thing as homeownership when you have to pay property taxes, because you might get your property taken away from you if you don't pay your property taxes. Does that make sense? So Illinois senator is standing up saying, for once, that we can't just bark about the problem. We have to sink our teeth into a solution. And the solution would be Senate Bill 1862. Now, let's be honest. Illinois is a tax hellscape. It is terrible here. We're not just paying the most income taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes. Gas taxes go up in just a few days. By the way, we're paying property taxes, the highest property taxes in the nation, or at least the second highest. And we're driving working families out of the state by tens of thousands of people. So here's the con. You save up, you buy the house, and you pay it off after 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears. And then what? You still don't own it. So that is the con, the great American con with property taxes. Because if you miss a property tax payment, just try missing one. Even after 40 years of paying them, the government's going to come in, take your home, seize it, and auction it off, and boom, it's gone. That's not ownership. That's renting from the state. Now, someone is finally standing up and saying enough is enough. That's Neil Anderson's bill. State Senator Neil Anderson introduced Senate Bill 1862, and here's what it says. If you've lived here and paid taxes on your residential home for at least 30 years, you no longer have to pay property taxes. You earned it. You own it. This is pretty chill, like this bill. I mean, if I was writing a bill, I think I'd probably say no property taxes ever It goes to the schools anyway, and the schools are complete crap. So, yeah, no property taxes ever. Defund these schools. Amen, Senator. You got to own your stuff at some point, because if the government can still take your house even after you've paid it off, you're not a free person. You're a glorified renter in a rigged system. So let's talk about what this tax tyranny actually looks like for real people. I'm going to break down these numbers. The average Illinois homeowner nearly pays 2% of their home value in taxes every single year. That's around $5,200, $5,200 on a house that's about $250,000. Okay, so you're paying $5,000 a year, over $5,000 a year in rent to the state over 30 years. So you will have had paid $150,000 in property taxes on a home that you already bought. And here's the kicker. If you fall on hard times and you can't pay those taxes, what does the state say? Well, we're going to come take your house. Right? Or we're going to seize your house and auction it off. The state doesn't say, oh, you've paid enough over the years. Let's work with you. No, they'll send a sheriff. They will send a tax sale notice, and then they'll take your home, and then they'll give it to a tax buyer. So it's legalized theft with a smiley face sticker. It says community development, right? That's what that process looks like. It's theft, legalized theft, community development. Yeah, it's because somebody didn't take their or pay their taxes on probably a home that they already owned, or they fell on hard times and couldn't rent their property from the state. So now ask yourself, why are people leaving Illinois in droves? According to the Census Bureau, the state lost 32,000 residents just last year. That's for the 10th straight year of population decline. So since like 2014, I think we've been, so 11 years, maybe 10, we've been losing population. So State Senator Neil Anderson said it very clearly, quoted in the Center Square, quote, "The people have the means. They're just not going to put up with it anymore. That have the means. They're just not going to put up with it anymore." And who are we replacing them with? Okay, so Illinoisans who have the means to leave, they're not going to put up with this taxation and this theft anymore, and they're just going to leave. They're not going to put up with it anymore. And when those people leave, who's replacing them? Illegal immigrants that pay nothing and get free health care. Okay, so the middle class is the backbone of our tax base, and they're being taxed out of the state. Okay, so this is unsustainable. They're being replaced by people who don't contribute and aren't here legally. So the taxation issue is only going to get worse because they've got to squeeze more and more out of you, because we're replacing our out-migration with illegal immigrants who don't contribute, and they aren't here legally, and they're draining resources from the very system we're paying into. We're going to keep having to pay into that system, and we're going to keep having to have our taxes raised because we're getting replaced by illegal immigrants. Does that make sense? This is not compassion. This is economic suicide. Okay, so let's shift gear. I want to look at this biblically. As always, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're here. Let's look at this biblically from a biblical perspective. Scripture teaches that property is a blessing, stewardship is a calling, and the Lord gave Israel land as an inheritance. Okay, something that was passed down through generations. In Proverbs 13:22, it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." But in Illinois, that inheritance is under threat, not by war, not by famine, but by bureaucracy. Okay, so this is not what God intended. Ownership should be secured, not subject to the whims of the tax code and tax laws. A man should be able to rest in his old age in the home that he built, right, and not fear a tax bill being sent to him and him having to pay this tax bill in order to keep his house and in order to leave an inheritance to his children's children. Okay, a man should be able to rest in his old age. This bill, Senate Bill 1862, is a small step towards our God-given, the God-given order, back toward God-given order. Hey, God wants us to have an inheritance to pass down. We cannot pass down if we're constantly having to pay money to the man and rent. Basically, it's rent. Property taxes is rent. You're a glorified renter. You're not a homeowner. You have to actually own something in order to pass it down. So Senate Bill 1862 is supported by, obviously, Republicans, Dave Syverson, Chapin Rose, Terry Bryant, and others. And now it's stuck in an assignments committee. This has never been heard on the floor. And I don't think that it will ever be heard on the floor, but we'll have to see. Call your state senator in your local area. That would be in Bloomington, Dave Kaler, Sharon Chung. My state senator is Sally Turner. You can call them and ask them to support Senate Bill 1862. Show up in October when the legislature returns, and show up and talk and lobby. Lobby your legislators. Go to their office, knock on their door, say, hey, this bill, Senate Bill 1862, I'm particularly passionate about it, and I want you to vote for it. Show up to their office. Share this out with your friends. This is a great way to get the word out and talk to your neighbors. Make property taxes, make them great again, I guess. I say just eliminate them. This is a very small step. I wouldn't even say like 30 years property taxes, and then you get to stop paying on them. I would just say get rid of property taxes altogether, because it's unconstitutional. It's un-American. But if there's one thing that politicians fear more than a balanced budget, it is a vocal public voice that's tired of being robbed. So if you actually were to show up in Springfield and knock on your senator's door, they would be freaked out by that, and they might actually get on board with this. So if you can lose your home for missing a tax payment, you don't own your home. The government owns your home. Senator Anderson's bill won't just tweak the tax code. It challenges the very foundation of how the state treats you. That's what's so important about this bill. Are you a sovereign citizen, or are you a serf on government land, a peasant on government land? Illinois has chosen to, for too long, to tax its own people into poverty. That's where we're at, while importing dependents on the taxpayer dime, importing illegal immigrants who are dependent on these very people who are just going to start leaving. And then the tiny little people that are left in Illinois, the rest of the middle class that's left in Illinois, they're going to get squeezed more and more and more to pay for the health care of illegal immigrants. It's not sustainable. This isn't America. It doesn't look like America. This is Pritzkerstan. This is not Illinois, a state within the United States of America. Property rights are human rights. That is actually a fact. Okay. Healthcare is not a human right. They'll say human rights, human rights, human rights. Property rights are actually rights that are promised to you, endowed by unalienable rights endowed by a creator. These are actual human rights. So Senate Bill 1862 is a step forward in reclaiming your human rights. Your rights endowed by a creator. So I also want to get to something else this morning. I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. Big government, or government is, of course, crushing the hemp business. Okay. And they are protecting big marijuana. Full disclosure, I do not like marijuana. I don't think it should have ever been legalized, any of it. Whether it's Delta 8, marijuana, I don't think any of it should have ever been legalized. But here we are, we've legalized it here in the state of Illinois. And now they want to crush, they're picking winners and losers. And I knew this stuff was going to happen. It's not a shocker to me, but they're picking winners and losers, and small town entrepreneurs in the hemp industry who are making cannabinoids. They're going to be crushed. They're the losers in this industry, and big marijuana is going to be protected, of course, by government. I'm going to get to that here in just a second. Smash that like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hey, good morning. It's Conservative Cat. I so do appreciate you being here this morning. Subscribe to the channel. Head on over to patriotpumpenergy.com. Get your bottle of Patriot Pump today using promo code Conservative Cat. Best promo code out there. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about government protecting big marijuana. So today we're talking about something that cuts at the heart of the modern American mess that is weed legalization, federal overreach, and now the government's next move to ban hemp-derived Delta 8 and THC products. Now, let's be clear, we should have never legalized marijuana the way we did. Definitely not the way we did, but I take the position that, and I'll get to the biblical scripture that tells us that we should be lucid and that we shouldn't be trying to get high. Okay. I'll get to that here in just a second because it's not biblical to get high. Period. This is a mess. Let's be clear. We should have never legalized marijuana. It was reckless, profit driven, and culturally corrosive. And we're starting to see that now. Our youth, they aren't going to work because of the side effects of marijuana. It makes you lazy. It makes you unmotivated, depressed. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. But now the gates have been opened. And the same government that unleashed this culturally corrosive, profit-driven, reckless industry, this same government that unleashed this on the people, and we have to deal with it. You have to deal with the youth not coming into work because they're high all of the time and they're not contributing members of society. This same government that unleashed all of this mess, they are now picking winners and losers in the drug economy. And surprise, the winners aren't, your mom and pop farmers or these small town entrepreneurs. No. It's big marijuana. The losers, well, that's everybody else. So buckle up. We're digging into Delta 8. So Congress, they have a new hemp crackdown. And this whole thing is about exposing corruption. And I am not going to sit here and let the Republicans get away with it or the Democrats because there's corruption through. And I don't think that this is about, we want to protect the kids from Delta 8. Maybe Delta 8, maybe a little bit, but not really. This is about money hungry government. And this whole thing is going to expose how corrupt, hypocritical, and money hungry your government is and has become. So let's break it down. What is Delta 8? That is a compound derived from legal hemp. It is the cousin of Delta 9, THC, and it gets you high like traditional marijuana. Okay, it's a derivative, it's a cannabinoid. But Delta 8 is less potent than Delta 9, and it's more accessible. And thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill, completely legal under federal law. So they legalized this. There's this loophole in the law in 2018, and I don't think this was by accident. There's a loophole, and since this bill passed, Delta 8 has exploded in the market. There's gummies, there's vapes, there's oils, there's even candy flavored or little candies that have this Delta 8 stuff that's cannabinoid. There's like bags of chips that you can get, okay, that have this Delta 8 stuff in them. And people argue this is dangerous. I think all drugs are dangerous, okay, especially for kids. Others say, and I would say that this is a free market opportunity that was legal and fair and square. And nobody was doing anything illegal, by the way, by creating these Delta 8, because the law in 2018, the Farm Bill that was passed, completely legal under federal law to make Delta 8 products. Okay, so people were doing this legally. They did it fair and square, and they participated in what's called the free market. And now Congress wants to ban it. Okay, so the House Appropriations Committee, they quietly added a provision to the 2026 agricultural and FDA funding bill that would make hemp-derived intoxicants, is what they call that, Delta 8, illegal. Yes, they're intoxicants, just like marijuana is an intoxicant. Alcohol is an intoxicant. I find it interesting that they call it's an intoxicant. Yes, all of it is intoxicants. All of it's bad. But they say it's being sold to kids, which I don't doubt. I'm sure kids, these gas stations that are not carting, whatever. And they say it's unregulated. Here's the reality. This isn't about safety. I want to make this very clear. This is about control. That's what this is about. Let's be honest. The new push to ban Delta 8 isn't coming from your churches. It's not coming from your parents or your pastors. This isn't really even coming from public health experts, to be honest with you. It's coming from big marijuana. That's what it is. And the politicians that they bankroll. So Delta 8 threatens their monopoly, big marijuana. Why? Because it's easier to produce. It's sold outside of the regulated weed industry, and they can't tax it. The government can't control it. It's not taxed. And people prefer the cannabinoids over the marijuana, which probably isn't all that healthy for you because it's a synthetic. I don't know the ins and outs, obviously, of marijuana and what's healthy and what's not. I'm sure it's all not good because they're intoxicants. And really what this is, it's about competition, though. This means competition. People go to the cannabinoids because it's not heavily taxed, okay, and it's accessible. So the competition, we know big government hates competition. There's one thing that these cronies hate, it's competition. So instead of fixing the mess that they created, which was legalizing weed in the first place, they should just have a federal ban on it, on all marijuana. We just shouldn't be selling it. There was a way to decriminalize marijuana without actually legalizing it, by the way. They're trying to cut the legs out from the little guys, the local hemp producers, these hemp small shop owners, the independent businesses who are just following the law. They're trying to cut the legs out from under these little guys. And this isn't about drugs. I want to be clear. This isn't about the safety of kids. This is more about market control because there's a way to make sure that Delta 8 doesn't wind up in the hands of children. We've managed it with alcohol, right? Children shouldn't be drinking alcohol. We should enforce the law. The law is that you can't have cannabinoid products in the hands of anybody under the age of 21, and we should be enforcing that. Representative Mary Miller, she is obviously Congresswoman from Illinois. She is a solid conservative voice, and I might get some pushback for this, but she's leading the charge on banning Delta 8. Her intention, I think, is actually to protect the kids, protect our communities, and stop selling this psychoactive gummies to teenagers in gas stations. I get it, but listen. We all agree that the THC, kids should not be buying THC products, period. Okay, and that's already law. Like if they're selling that in gas stations, that's not good. Okay, and there should be regulation. We do it with alcohol, we do it with cigarettes. Why can't we do it with Delta 8? Okay, why would we have to outright ban it? This tells you all you really need to know. This isn't about really protecting the kids. This is about market control. And we should have never legalized it in the first place, but here we are. And we can't solve the problems of weed legalization by banning hemp and empowering federal regulators to destroy lawful business that played by the rules that the government already wrote, by the way. Okay, there are problems with weed legalization, and those should be addressed. We should be making sure that children aren't getting cannabinoids. Outright banning this is baloney, though, because we know exactly what's going on here. You just want big marijuana, the people who line your pockets, to not have competition. So it's classic DC hypocrisy. Legalize pot for profit, regulate it to death, let big weed carve out the market and destroy the smaller rivals. I mean, this was the game plan. Okay, this is the same playbook that they used for agriculture. This is the same playbook that they use for education, the same playbook that they have for healthcare. It's government picking winners and losers again. And really, the Christian worldview here, and I struggle with this because I'd love to ban it all. Just ban it all. But if you're not going to ban it all, you definitely can't ban the little guys over big weed. Okay, so the Christian worldview here, let's step back, look at this biblically. Scripture tells us to be sober-minded and vigilant. This is 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Drugs and intoxicants cloud the mind. We know that. We should teach that in our schools, and we should teach sobriety in our schools boldly without compromise. It also tells us, though, biblically, Leviticus 19:15 tells us to deal justly and not show partiality in judgment. So to deal with these industries justly. It's not just to let big weed get all the protection and get all the perks where we cut out the legs from the little guy. This is not biblical. Okay. So, number one, we should just ban it all because, hey, sober-minded and vigilant. That's what the Bible tells us to do. And there was no weed. Nobody smoked pot in the Bible. Okay. Drinking wine, yes. I won't go as far, but weed is different. We know that there's health effects now. There's just like there is with alcohol, but there are some major side effects to weed. You can get addicted. There is studies that show now that there is an increased risk of depression when you're smoking pot. So there's no integrity in protecting big marijuana. There's no justice in that. And if we want a moral society, we have to start with the truth, not selective enforcement. Okay, the truth is that, hey, this isn't really about protecting kids. If we wanted to protect kids, we could do it. Okay, like with everything else, at 21, enforce the law. You give some cannabinoids to kids, then you go to jail. Okay, so you're a drug dealer. We can't say it's fine when it makes us tax money and scream danger when the alternative threatens the cartel. That's what this is. The alternative is threatening the cartel, which is big marijuana. And here's what happened. Let's be clear. We shouldn't have legalized marijuana in the first place, and we should have reformed criminal penalties. I think that was a big reason why people wanted to legalize marijuana here in this state. They wanted to legalize it because they were like, hey, we've got to reform the criminal penalties. And if we legalize it, then, this is social justice or this is criminal justice. There was a way to reform criminal penalties for possession without opening the gates to corporate dope dealers and government-sponsored vice. That's what we're at. That is where we're at. We are at corporate dope dealers now. And government-sponsored vice, where the government comes in and acts like vice and starts taking out the little guys because it's not government-approved marijuana. Okay, so now we've opened Pandora's box, and we don't fix it by punishing the wrong people instead. Well, why don't we force age restrictions accordingly, okay, and consistently? Apply product labeling, transparency rules, right? And a pack of cigarettes and on alcohol. There's a lot of transparency rules on alcohol and cigarettes. Why can't we just do that? Okay, let states regulate within reason without crushing the small hemp producers under federal bans. More importantly, stop pretending to regulate morality while profiting off immorality. Okay, you are profiting off of these politicians. They're bankrolled by big marijuana. They're profiting off immorality. They're getting tax money off of this immorality, and they're profiting off of it. And then at the same time, they're saying, oh, well, we have to be moral, and the cannabinoids, like, we have to get rid of those because the kids. Stop it. It's not about morality. If you were seriously a moral person and it was about morality, then you'd outright ban all of this crap. So this whole mess was created because government wanted to eat at both sides of the table. They wanted to pretend to protect the public, and then they also want to cash in on the public's destruction. Well, guess what? We say no more. Okay, zoom out for a second. Let's look at Illinois. Legal marijuana was supposed to be social justice reform, like I said, criminal justice reform. That's why they told us they had to legalize it, that, hey, we have to stop putting people in jail for pot. But what did we really get? Okay, after legalization, high taxes. It's taxed to death. It's insanely costly. Government monopolies, corporate weed lobbies, and communities flooded with illegal street sales anyway. Okay, where they're giving kids cannabinoids and things like that. So now Illinois is one of the worst offenders when it comes to heavy-handed regulation of legal markets, except when it comes to enforcing actual consequences to law-breaking dealers. Okay, they are very heavy-handed with the markets and regulating cannabinoids and these markets, but they don't actually go after the dealers, the law-breaking dealers. They would much rather regulate, and then they do it under the guise of enforcement and morality. But at the same time, they're not arresting, Pueblo or whatever he is for dealing fentanyl in Chicago. Okay, they give him a slap on the wrist for the Safety Act. So this isn't about morality. So when people like Representative LaShawn Ford, he's a Democrat, says banning Delta 8 will bring back the drug war, we get it. We don't want to return to failed tactics of the past, but we don't want a phony free market where the government picks its friends and it crushes everyone else. So this isn't justice. This isn't freedom. This is an economic manipulation. I do need to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, and this is the show that gives corruption a name, a face, and a one-way ticket to exposure. I'm Kat, and today we are taking a really hard look at the unholy alliance between Michael Madigan and the unions he used like pawns in his political empire. So let's be clear, unions in theory, sure, fair wages, nice, safe workplaces, all good. But under Madigan, unions weren't about workers. They were about votes, money, and absolute political control. Let's dig into it, shall we? Madigan built a fortress of influence using public sector unions, especially teachers, electrical workers, laborers, AFSCME. How'd he do it? Easy. He passed contracts that favored unions with big raises, ironclad job security, and pension sweeteners that simply Illinois could not afford. That's why we have the pension debt. Okay. In return, those unions pumped millions of dollars into campaign coffers, nearly $10 million from AFSCME alone, mostly directed to Madigan's machine-approved candidates. You get the contract, I get the cash, the taxpayers get screwed. This is a corruption carousel that we are on. It sounds familiar. Look at Illinois' pension crisis. Over $130 to $140 billion in pension debt and counting. Madigan and his union pals made promises that the state could never keep up just to win short-term votes. That's why we're in the pension crisis, stupid. Now we're stuck with the bill while they enjoy six-figure retirements at the age of 55. This wasn't just about money, though. Madigan used unions to intimidate the opposition. If you ran for office without a union backing, they'd swarm your district with mailers and door hangers and smear ads, and it's impossible to win if the union is backing said candidate. And they'll use the union to swarm your district, and you could never win against a Madigan machine-approved candidate. And this still goes on today in many areas of Illinois. You didn't run against Madigan, you ran against his union army, and it's still the case today. And then it's changed a little bit. Maybe it's unions and a little bit of nonprofit sector as well. In many areas of Illinois, you didn't run against Madigan or a Madigan candidate. You ran against an army. The best examples of this is in 2018, Madigan's campaign machine sent union-backed operatives to attack Democratic reform candidates. Okay, yes, even people of his own party. Okay, if they dared question his ethics or if they dared run against one of his handpicked puppets, they would go and they'd send union-backed operatives to go and attack Democrat reform candidates. Not quite literally, but, the door hangers, the smear campaigns, all of that. And they had the money to do it because they kept getting the contracts from the government, from Madigan. And he had all the money in the world to do it because he kept getting the money from the unions. It's just this carousel, and you just keep getting screwed as a taxpayer. So don't forget about the shady deals. One union linked lobbyist said that he felt obligated to hire Madigan's people just to get access to Springfield. That's not representation. That's racketeering with a pension plan. Okay. Now, even with Madigan under indictment and facing sentencing, he has 22 counts of corruption. Those union ties still linger. The same union leaders that backed him for decades, they're still sitting pretty. They're still funding candidates who won't touch reform with the 10-foot pole. None of these candidates want to touch reform with 10-foot pole. Nobody's really denounced Madigan's political machine. Governor J.B. Pritzker surely hasn't. And this has been Conservative Cat Clips, reminding you that unions have become political weapons when solidarity becomes code. Solidarity is code. That word is code for corruption. And when the taxpayer is left holding the bag, that's not labor, that's a scam. Okay. Michael Madigan may be out of office, but his legacy lives on with bloated budgets, crony contracts, union bosses who still pull the strings from behind closed doors. And here's your homework, my folks in Illinois. Follow the money, follow the endorsements, follow the corruption, because it always leads back to the same machine. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. I'm Conservative Cat. Subscribe to the channel today. I'd appreciate it. That helps us out. Follow me on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook. Now, before we took the break, I want to wrap this story up with big marijuana and how government is choosing big marijuana over the little guy, these Delta 8 cannabinoid hemp dealer type guys. They created this market, the government, and then they built the legal loopholes. They promoted it, taxed it, and they called it freedom. Okay. Now they're slamming the door on anyone who isn't a corporate partner or a campaign donor. That's really what this is about. So they made the legal loopholes in 2018, like I said, in that farm bill, and they promote marijuana all the time. Here in the state of Illinois, I don't have to tell you that they tax it into oblivion, and they call it freedom, right? They're like, oh yeah, this is freedom. This is so cool. Like so awesome that we deregulate or we decriminalized marijuana and we legalized it, right? It's freedom, right? Actually, it's not, because they turn around and then they slam the door in the faces of these little mom and pop shops or these small entrepreneurs, these hemp products. Really, it's because they're not a corporate partner or they're not a part of the club. And we should have never gone down this road legalizing marijuana, but we did. And it's our job to make sure that we don't go in and fix the industry at the expense of liberty, fairness, and truth. Okay, Delta 8, people say that, it's bad for you, whatever. There's so many things that are bad for you. For example, cigarettes, alcohol. Just put the labeling on it, right? Put the labeling on it. Make sure the kids aren't getting it. Okay. I mean, we do it with alcohol, cigarettes. We do it in the marijuana dispensaries. You can regulate it to a point where you don't actually have to outright ban it. This is a federal ban that they're looking at. Barry Miller has been leading the charge on that, and I disagree because this is... at doing it, you're fixing the marijuana industry at the expense of liberty, fairness, and truth. So keep speaking loudly. But let's protect our kids. Really, I would love to see all of it banned. Don't ban plants. That's retarded. I do want to get to this one. Weed is not addictive. Look, marijuana is a drug. It's much different than alcohol and cigarettes. Okay. You say ban cigarettes. I wouldn't be totally against legalizing marijuana, but it's become this big marijuana scam, clearly, because they're trying to outlaw these small mom and pop shops. I wouldn't be completely against it if it not be for the biblical, sobriety. Pot, typically recreational, and it wasn't medically, right? Medically, you could get it with a medical marijuana card. That was a thing for years. Prior to recreational use, legalizing recreational use of marijuana. This is a drug. It's different than alcohol. It's different than alcohol can be addictive as well. I'm not saying that. And cigarettes, obviously, nicotine, very addictive. But marijuana, and you can look at the studies. There's studies that have come out. You say that weed isn't addictive. Well, guess what? The National Institute on Drug Abuse, they say that approximately 3 in 10, so that's 30% of marijuana users, develop some sort of cannabis use disorder. And there are negative consequences. Adolescents who start using marijuana, they are at higher risk for addiction and depression. Frequent use of marijuana can cause depression and cannabis use disorders. So we're starting to see the studies now. And, I think that to get it legalized, people, said, oh, it's a plant. It's a plant. Well, so is tobacco, which we use in cigarettes. Alcohol derived from grapes, right? I mean, all of it is. These drugs and the potency of the THC that is currently in the dispensaries is not your typical marijuana. Okay. Before legalization, it wasn't about getting high. Okay. It was about relaxing and chilling, similar to that of having a drink with friends. What they're doing in these dispensaries with the high potency marijuana, this is the goal of marijuana, is to get high. And we know biblically that the Bible commands us to be sober and to be vigilant. So yeah, I am against the legalization of marijuana. Totally. It should have never happened. There was a way to decriminalize it, to make sure we weren't locking people up for pot smoking. Okay. But what we've got now is just something that is unrecognizable, right? You've got big marijuana and you've got kids getting addicted, not wanting to go to work because they're depressed. You've got 3 out of every 10 marijuana users being diagnosed with severe cannabis abuse disorders. Now you've got big government coming in and protecting big marijuana and crushing the little guys in this industry. And it's just a mess. This weed legalization has become a complete mess because they did it wrong. They did it under the disguise that, hey, weed is cool, man, and it's okay to get high. That was never a thing with alcohol and cigarettes. Okay, if you go back and people were promoting cigarettes as a diet thing, or a, hey, you're going to be skinny if you use cigarettes. I'm not talking about that. And eventually we got there, where we say, hey, alcohol is dangerous. I remember DARE, these programs, but marijuana, how often do you see don't drive high billboards? I don't ever see them. When alcohol and the regulation of alcohol really started to become a thing, you would see the billboards and the marketing, don't drive drunk, all of that stuff. You don't really see that with marijuana at all. And really, they promoted it as hey, it's okay to get high. Don't let the government tell you what you can and can't do. And they just went about this whole legalization thing totally wrong. I think that there might have been a way to do it, but they didn't do it that way. And now we've got this big mess where we're crushing the little guys in the industry and we're cutting their legs out from under them. But also, we have to deal with the addiction. All right, we're going to get to a few other things. Smash that like button, share this out. I will take other chats here in just a couple of minutes. But I do want to get to Donald Trump and him going off on AOC. This was great. So Trump dropped this epic rant against AOC. And this guy, his name is Tim Young. He's on social media. And he transformed Trump's AOC rant into a Star Wars style opening crawl. And it's totally worth watching. I want to share this with you. You're going to get a kick out of it. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to share with you the crawl. I muted myself. Sorry about that. Um, I wanted to show you guys the crawl because it was perfect. Donald Trump's comments, hilarious. AOC. He says she's one of the stupidest, dumbest people in Congress, and she's now calling for my impeachment, despite the fact that crooked and corrupt Democrats have done this twice before. So that's Donald Trump on Truth Social. And he dared the progressive squad member, AOC, to try to impeach him over the U.S. strikes. Now, yesterday I talked about this in detail. The U.S. strikes on the the Iranian nuclear facilities. Look, that was totally constitutional. This was a military operation. Imminent danger or national security. The president, under Article 2 of the Constitution, gives the commander-in-chief the ability to do things like a military operation like that without getting congressional approval. Donald Trump said the reason that AOC goes on these little rants, it's all because she can't stand the victories that the USA has had. And these people, AOC and other squad members, they hate America, which is why she's going on this rant and saying that she wants to impeach Donald Trump. It's because the USA had great success with the Iranian nuclear strikes. I don't care where you line up on the issue. Maybe you disagreed with the strikes. Maybe you're one of those fake MAGA people. But maybe you disagreed with them after the strike had actually happened. You can't disagree that it was a total success, not a single casualty. And we got rid of Iran nuclear facilities, possibly preventing World War III and saving the world. So Democrats aren't used to winning. This is what he says on Truth Social. And I I think it's so funny that Tim Young, he put it in a Star Wars crawl, like Donald Trump's comments about AOC, and he put it in a Star Wars crawl, which I thought was hilarious. I didn't realize I needed that today. But Democrats, they're not used to winning, and she can't stand the concept of the country being successful again. So I want to make this very clear. Just because the Democrats don't like something that Donald Trump did does not mean that it's an impeachable offense. Okay. The fact that these lawmakers throw these kinds of fits in these moments prove that they hate America. And it shows that he's doing something right, by the way. If he's pissing off AOC with these nuclear strikes, he's doing something right. Okay. So these people don't represent the will of the people. The fake MAGA people, they lied to you. They said that, oh, this is World War III and that Donald Trump is a Bibi pawn, a Bibi Netanyahu pawn, and that he's bought out by the Israelis, which I don't like AIPAC either. There are governments or there are politicians who are bought out by the corrupt, just like the United States has a corrupt government. Israel has a corrupt government. Okay. And there are politicians who are bought out by the Israelis. Okay. AIPAC. I'm not saying that that's not the case with some politicians, definitely not Donald Trump, especially after him coming out and saying these countries don't know what the F they're doing. Do you think he'd say that about a country that he is a pawn for? No. He was very upset, specifically upset with Israel because they violated that ceasefire agreement. I think in a couple of weeks, it's going to be all fine and dandy. The ceasefire will be abided by both countries. And really, in 12 days' time, a little over 12 days, Donald Trump has ended the war in the Middle East. I mean, we have to applaud him for that. I wonder if AOC realizes that she took an oath to represent all Americans, even the ones that voted for Donald Trump. This fake pursuit to uphold democracy, by not upholding democracy, she's actually threatening our democracy. Okay, we voted for Donald Trump. We want him there. We spoke loudly on November 24th, right? In November of 2024, we spoke loudly and we said we want Donald Trump. She is trying to say that he's a threat to democracy, yada, yada, yada. She wants to uphold the democracy by impeaching him because he's not following the Constitution, which is a lie. Check out Article 2 that details the commander-in-chief's job duties and the capabilities he has as far as military operations. He definitely can do this. Nuclear facilities, airstrikes for the nuclear, or the strikes for the nuclear facilities, he can do this. But she is really threatening democracy by saying she wants to impeach the guy that we elected. Okay, so she's a threat to democracy, and the impeachment would be a threat to democracy. Trump said that AOC's test scores will show that she's not qualified for office. No. Nevertheless, she's far more qualified than Jasmine Crockett, who has a seriously low IQ, or Ilhan Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country, yet the failed country she comes from doesn't have a government, is drenched in crime, poverty. They don't have a government, is drenched in crime, poverty, is rated one of the worst countries in the world. Even if it was even rated at all. So he's talking about Ilhan Omar's country, where she comes from. He went on this epic rant on Truth Social, and I thought it was hilarious. So really, in other words, these leftists, they want to destroy the nation. They don't like the nation. They don't like when we're successful. They don't like that this Iran nuclear strike was actually very successful and that Donald Trump actually brought about peace. In a matter of 12 days. I know that they violated the ceasefire agreements, and this kind of stuff happens, especially when you're dealing with two countries who don't know what the F they're doing, to quote Donald Trump. That quote, I hope, goes down in history as one of the best quotes, like right there with we have nothing to fear but fear itself. I think that it's going to go right up there with all the other great ones. But yeah, when you have countries who don't know what the F they're doing, you're going to have them violating the ceasefire agreement. I think that they'll be fine in a couple of weeks. God's in control. He's going to supernaturally protect Israel like he always has biblically. We know that he's done that. Look, they're not fooling anyone. We all know that they all have seriously low IQs, to put it mildly. AOC, the squad members, the people who are calling for Donald Trump's impeachment. And we know that these people just bash America and that they don't like when America succeeds. This was a success, and they don't like that America succeeds. All right, let's get to Lizzie Warren. Lizzie Pocahontas Warren. Elizabeth Warren lectured President Donald Trump and said that he put lives at risk when he was striking Iran. But this is hilarious because she was speaking from behind a Planned Parenthood podium. What? Do you not, are you that tone deaf? Are you that like unaware of like where you're at? So whether you agree with Trump's response in Iran or not, you aren't MAGA if you don't agree with Trump's response in Iran. And if you think that Donald Trump is a pawn of Israel, screw you. That's totally dumb, right? To think that, especially after the strikes had happened, and his mannerisms and the way that he was critical of Israel, even after the ceasefire, and they unloaded after there was like a stray missile from Iran, I guess. So even if you don't agree with it, though, with the Iran strikes, when it comes to Lizzie Warren, you have to, and some people know her as Pocahontas, you have to understand that this is very tone deaf, and she must not really like she has a lack of self-awareness that is almost awesome. Take a listen to this.
Just put this in some context here. Negotiations were moving forward, and I give credit to the Trump administration. They were helping bring the parties together, negotiating to keep Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu has never wanted to rely on negotiations. He has wanted to engage in military actions. He saw his opportunity. He shoved the president aside and the president's negotiation and moved forward, and then turned around and managed to pull Donald Trump in, who in turn seems to be working hard to pull the entire United States into war in Iran. The Constitution is clear. Only Congress can declare war. We all understand there are exceptions when our troops are at risk, when our homeland is at risk, when Americans are at risk, but none of those apply. In this case, what Donald Trump has done is unconstitutional, and we're going to have a vote this week in the United States Senate on the War Powers Act, and this is our opportunity. It only takes a simple majority to reel back in Donald Trump and make clear to the world that the United States is not going to war against Iran.
Oh boy. Oh, so tone deaf. The lack of self-awareness is astonishing. If you read Article 2 as your constitutional authority, you either have never read it or you have trouble reading comprehension. James Madison made it clear that Congress can take us from a state of peace to a state of war. We are not in a state of war. What the hell are you talking about, man? Okay, we're not in a state of war. This was a military operation. So Article 2 of the Constitution makes it really clear that the president, commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, this grants him direct authority to direct military operations to defend national security and U.S. citizens from direct imminent threats. I don't know about you, but a nuclear facilities and having a country that screams death to America and having them have a nuclear weapon, probably an imminent threat. Okay. Without a presumptive vote from Congress, he can do that if there's an imminent threat or if he has to defend national security. Number one. Number two, a 2001 and 2002 authorization for use of military force. These are called AUMFs. They have remained active. Presidents of both parties, Republicans and Democrats, okay, and I want to make something very clear here, Barack Obama Nobody talked about impeachment. Nobody talked about unconstitutional when Barack Obama dropped 172 bombs in 7 countries without a single new without a single new war vote from Congress. He did not get a single vote from Congress to do any of that, and he dropped 26,000 bombs, over 26,000 bombs, and he bombed 7 countries over his 8-year 2-term time there. Okay, but the AUMFs, okay, these remain active, and what this is, both parties have conducted military operations against terrorist threats and hostile forces using AUMFs. Okay, so I know it's difficult for Democrats and for whatever Donnie is. I know it's difficult to comprehend, but Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and he was acting within the authority granted to him by the American people and the Constitution. You got to get used to it. Okay, and this wasn't like, you know how many people died Barack Obama killed with all of those airstrikes? He was like the droner in chief, drone strikes, okay? 26,000 bombs. You know how many people died during those 8 years? Nobody died in this operation. Nobody. This was very clear, quick. Yeah, total bogus. I mean, people who say that this is unconstitutional. You haven't read the Constitution, my guy. Go read Article 2. Also look up a thing or two about the AUMFs and take a look at all their presidents who have done this. Barack Obama, George Bush, Barack Obama, 26,000 bombs. He had an imminent threat, intelligence that showed that there were nuclear facilities, that they were building bombs. This was a country that is hostile to us, and he was taking out an imminent threat. This was America first, which is why I say fake MAGA, people who didn't. I was worried. I'm not going to lie. I was worried about the strikes. Check out my Saturday show from the day before where I was talking about, hey, I think that they're going to be sending B-2s. They're going to be striking Iran. I was a little worried because I was thinking, oh, man, people are going to die. This is going to send us into war. I was worried. After the strike had happened and they carried this out without Iran even knowing, okay, until the next day, really, within the several hours after the strikes, they didn't even know about it. Okay, and I think that's hilarious, and that just goes to show you how mighty the U.S. military, American military force is. Iran, they didn't even know about it, and they're at war with the country right now and have been at war for a couple of years now. Well, for a long time, but they weren't checking their damn skies. Like, they didn't even know. So, yeah, I totally disingenuous, the people who say that this is unconstitutional, because they didn't hold Barack Obama's feet to the fire via impeachment or say that that was unconstitutional. And he killed people with over 26,000 bombings. Americans, by the way. All right. Have you ever met a more unlikable woman than Lizzie? By the way, Lizzie Warren. I want to make this very clear. According to the Catholic news agencies, Planned Parenthood performed over 392,000 abortions between October of 2021 and September of 2022. This is an increase of 18,500 or 5% from the previous report, which only showed 374,000 abortions done in a 1-year time period. So lots of abortions, according to analysis done by a faith-based law firm, Liberty Counsel. Planned Parenthood's latest abortion numbers mean that the organization ended 1,075 human lives through abortion every day and 44 every hour. So thousands of lives lost every single day through abortion. And then 44 lives are lost every single hour due to Planned Parenthood. So Lizzie, she's talking from behind a Planned Parenthood platform, by the way, podium. And she doesn't mention how she supports the killing of over 1,000 babies, unborn babies every year. And she is sitting up there in the hypocrisy. She's saying that Donald Trump risked lives. He didn't kill anybody, okay, with these strikes. I want to make that very clear. Nobody died. And she's saying that how could he have done this? He risked lives. Okay, lady, you are such a hypocrite. You know how many lives are lost during abortion or because of abortion every year? And you're standing behind that, the lack of self-awareness. I mean, at this point, it's intentional. So additionally, she voted to fund foreign wars at the expense of Americans. Ukraine. There is a way to bring about peace without going into a foreign war for decades, nation building. And Donald Trump figured that out and did it in 2016 too, by the way, after the Iran nuclear deal, which emboldened Iran actually because of the pallets of cash Brock had sent them. He had to come in and it was kind of like a regime change. He killed Soleimani in 2016. Kind of like a regime change, but he got in and got out very quickly. And if you remember, during Trump's first term, no new wars, nothing like that. We weren't sending American troops to foreign lands, and we weren't paying for these foreign wars at the expense of American citizens. We were still, yes, in Afghanistan. The Afghanistan withdrawal was completely botched, but there's a way to get out of there, and Donald Trump would have figured it out had he had a second term and the election wasn't stolen. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that hole. This woman, Lizzie Warren, she has funded foreign wars at the expense of Americans, wars that have done nothing to the benefit of the citizenry, unlike what Donald Trump did, which nobody died, by the way, but this was to the benefit of America, okay, making sure Iran didn't have nukes. And she's got a lot of nerve claiming that she's all about peace and all about saving lives when she's the one with her votes expense of the American people, foreign wars, Ukraine, thousands of people have died in that war. And there is no direct benefit for us getting involved in Ukraine. They're not really an ally of ours. Well, now they are because Donald Trump went in and crafted a deal and they're kind of an ally of ours. And that was a way to ensure Russia to back off because we signed a mineral deal. But she's got a lot of nerve claiming that she's all about peace when her actions show otherwise. Donald Trump's actions, Donald Trump is the most anti-death president that I think we've ever had. Most anti-war president we've ever had. There's a way to conduct a military operation, and they are pissed off because they're not making money off of these forever wars, regime changes, nation building, and they're pissed because everybody said, oh, it can't be done. We're going to have to send troops there. We're going to have to be in this war for 20 years. Everybody says that it can't be done. Donald Trump goes in there, boom, conducts a military operation, and he's got Iran and Israel eating out of the palm of his hands. Okay, they're like his children, and they do what he says. Okay, so he is controlling the situation and is doing it without losing lives. So it can be done when you're an effective commander-in-chief and you actually use the powers granted to you through the Constitution, and you use it for good, and you use it to prevent death and destructions. He's ended this war. Nominate this guy for a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this guy ended a war in 12 days, like in a matter of 12 days. It's insanity. So the recent military actions taken by our forces resulted in 0 U.S. casualties, unlike countless of lives lost in Planned Parenthood, countless of lives lost during Barack Obama's terms. Like I said, 26,000 bombs. And yet she dares lecture the American people as if she genuinely cares about saving lives. And she's behind this Planned Parenthood podium. And she's like, yes, I really care about saving lives. How dare Donald Trump risk lives? Are you serious? Her actions have shown us where she stands. Donald Trump's actions prove to us that he is the most pro-life president, most anti-war president, cares about our American service members' lives. And his actions prove that. Her actions prove the opposite. So, yeah, but what could we expect from the whitest woman who claims that she is, Native American, and she tried to pass herself off as Native American, although she's probably the whitest woman in modern political history. All right, let's get to this. I think that you guys are going to get a kick out of this one. Woke Amazon employee. Okay, so she is really, really nutty, and she says that she's going to crash out over the Donald Trump bombing Iran situation. So, have you ever heard the phrase "go touch grass"? That gets thrown around a lot. This girl actually needs to go touch grass. So she, I guess, is an Amazon employee. I'm assuming like an Amazon warehouse employee or something. This video has gone viral. She was on TikTok. I don't know where exactly it came from. I don't know the woman's name. But people are throwing it out there. She's an Amazon worker, and she was asking the internets how she was supposed to do her job, knowing that Donald Trump bombed Iran. So she has a rainbow sash on here, and she also was carrying a Mexican American flag. I don't know if that's her everyday attire or if she was just wearing it for the video, but she was carrying around a Mexican flag and wearing a rainbow sash or rainbow lanyard or something. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
I just want to know how I'm supposed to do my job when we bombed Iran and we're just supposed to like go around about. We're just supposed to get these boxes out without being worried. I just need somebody to explain to me how I'm supposed to not crash out.
Look at her.
I just want to know how I'm supposed to do my job.
She's got a little Mexican flag right there. I don't know how I'm supposed to do my job, and we're just supposed to like get these boxes out without being worried. Yes. I just need somebody to explain to me how I'm supposed to not crash out by processing the information that Donald Trump launched an bombs and bombed specifically nuclear facilities, process that information and behave like a grown-up and get the damn boxes out. Okay. So the bigger issue is why is little Amazon worker here? I don't know her name. Why is she and others like her, why are they having such a hard time struggling to process this information? It's probably because the media, the mainstream media, whatever Donald Trump does, they say that it is apocalyptic, that it is World War III, and they lied to you. Okay, the mainstream media and people on the right have lied to you about how this was World War III, this is apocalyptic, we're getting launched into a war. I never said any of that. I said that God is going to divinely protect Israel like he always does, and that I trust Donald Trump. He has intel that we don't have as Americans, and he has never gotten us into a forever war. He didn't do it in his first term. He promised not to do it in his second term. He promised peace. And I know Donald Trump, he keeps his promises, right? So, you know, the media, they'll say, oh, this is the worst case scenario. Like, this is World War III. And they frame it. And you get people like this who are just mentally unstable and buy into all of the lies. A good rule of thumb is whenever CNN or whatever talking point is being pushed out there by a progressive billionaire funding NGOs, aka what's reported on, what gets reported on CNN, NPR, whatever the talking point is that progressive billionaires are pushing out there, wait a few days. That's my rule of thumb. On Saturday, I talked about it. I expressed that I was a little nervous about the airstrikes, but I said, look at the Bible. Look back biblically and what has happened to the Israelis and how they were supernaturally protected. And I said, I've got peace. Shalom, shalom. Right? I've got peace knowing that Donald Trump has always kept his promises, and Donald Trump is not bought by the Israelis or the prime minister. He has got Iran and Israel eating out of his hand. When Trump does something that's a little out of pocket or a little different, just wait a few days before reacting to it. Okay, that is a good rule of thumb. Just see what happens. He doesn't do things and I've noticed this about Donald Trump, and I've come to really appreciate it. What he does is he doesn't just say things for the hell of it. He does it very deliberately. So, for example, he's talked about buying Canada and Greenland. And people are like, what a crazy nut he is. Like, how could he say that he wants to buy Greenland? It's strategic. Okay. So he's trying to ruffle the feathers of China because China is currently entering into these debt trap deals, loans with these countries, typically poor countries like Africa and in Latin America. China's moving in and they're getting them debt trapped and they're coming in. They're pretty much buying those countries without actually buying them. Okay. And Donald Trump knows the geopolitics and what's going on with China, the Panama Canal, right? All of that. That was all deliberate because he's trying to project strength, which I think that we actually have all of the cards. And now China is getting emboldened here and being more and more aggressive with these two countries. But they strategically want these countries in Latin America and then South America and countries in Africa. So they strategically were placed there or bought these countries with these debt trap loans because they want to be right by Europe and they want to be right by the United States. So Greenland geographically is close to China, right? If you just keep going around the globe. And it's rich in minerals and resources. Canada is rich in minerals and resources. Africa is rich in minerals and mining. So he is playing like 4D chess with these countries when he comes out and he tweets things like, I'm going to buy Greenland, right? So like everything he does that might seem like, oh, that's kind of odd. That's out of pocket. That's a little weird. It is deliberate. And you just got to wait a few days to react to it. So this woman should have taken a deep breath, relaxed, realized that everything was going to be fine. We're not going into World War III. This was not an act of war. And shame on anybody who says that this was an act of war. It wasn't. Nobody died. There were no casualties. This was Donald Trump conducting a very successful military operation, might I add, to stop an imminent threat, which would be Iran getting nukes. So anyone who said otherwise is lying to her, and nothing happening in the world right now would have prevented her from packing up Amazon boxes. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we don't meow around with the facts. No. I'm Kat, and today we are heading down to the New York City subway system. Not for a ride, but for a reality check. Let's talk about Jordan Neely. The media painted him as a subway performer. They paint him as a troubled guy who just needed help, and he was on the subway to do no harm. His death, May 2023. About that time, it turned into another instance of racism and injustice. The headlines were out before the full story even hit the tracks. And here's what they left out, and here's what you deserve to know. Jordan Neely wasn't doing Michael Jackson impressions on the subway. He had 40 prior arrests. 40. He was on a watch list for violent behavior, including attacks on subway riders. Okay, and just 2 years earlier, before his death, he had punched a 67-year-old woman in the face, breaking her nose and her orbital bone. So this man was not a man in need of applause, by the way. He had a long, dangerous history. Shame on his father. He should have taught him better. He should have been there for his mentally ill son. His father instead went out and tried to secure funding and, made himself look like he was the victim. The man, this was a man with a very long, Jordan Neely, long, dangerous history, roaming free on a system that fails both the public and the mentally ill. I won't lie there that it fails the public, but it also fails the mentally ill. Shame on his dad. Like I said, he should have been there for him. Somebody in this guy's life should have been there for him. On the day of his death, Neely was threatening passengers. Witnesses reported him shouting, throwing trash, and saying he didn't care if he died or went to jail. He goes, I don't care if I die. I don't care if I go to jail. One Marine veteran, Daniel Penny, did what many were afraid to do in this situation. He stepped in and he put him in a sleeper hold. And when it was all over, he got charged for manslaughter. Because in today's America, protecting people gets you in handcuffs, and threatening people gets you hashtags and GoFundMes, and your dad's out there with the politicians asking for political donations and asking for GoFundMe money. Let's get real. The true scandal here was not Neely's death. It's how many times the system failed before it got there. Okay, before like the system failed so much. It failed the public. It failed Jordan Neely. Why was a violent offender with a known mental illness on the streets? Why wasn't he locked away in an insane asylum? This is where New Yorkers are left to fend for themselves, while their city leaders blame systemic injustice or whatever, systemic racism. Why is self-defense treated like a crime now, by the way? Daniel Penny, he just defended himself and all those New Yorkers in the subway, and what was his thanks? Charged. So soft on crime policies, empty jails, and woke prosecutors putting everyday Americans in danger on subways, sidewalks, and in their own neighborhoods. This is the cold, hard truth. That is what led to that incident. Okay, soft on crime policies. He would have never been there had we been hard on crime policies in New York. The media didn't cover Neely's victims, by the way. They didn't tell you that the woman he brutalized broke her orbital bone. They didn't tell you about the terrified passengers that Daniel Penny saved. They just gave you a headline again, similar to Michael Brown in 2014, similar to George Floyd in 2020. And once again, politics replaced justice and people got rich. BLM, they got rich, and all of these radical groups get rich. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat, reminding you, we don't fix society by ignoring lawlessness. We don't protect the vulnerable by unleashing the unstable. And we sure as heck don't get justice by punishing the people who are brave enough to step up when no one else would. It's time we choose public safety, not a public spectacle. Okay, this has been Conservative Cat Clips. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And follow me on Rumble. Good morning, Conservative Cat. Appreciate you being here. Spot on, Cat. It's all about money. Donald Trump is against war and wants peace. Yeah, that's why they're all in a tizzy about not getting a vote in Congress. Because really what they wanted, they would have loved to vote, because then they would have actually declared war. This wasn't declaring war. This was taking out an imminent threat. Under Article 2 of the Constitution, it talks about how the commander-in-chief has significant control of the military, significant authority over armed forces. Although it is not absolute, Congress retains powers like declaring war and funding the military. Okay? So, yes, this was not a declaration of war. This was taking out an imminent threat. This is a military operation. And I hate to do the whataboutism, but what about Barack Obama, right, where he launched over 26,000 bombs over the course of his 8-year term. And he bombed 7 countries and killed people. Nobody died in this operation. This was actually, like you said, peace. This was a peace operation and to achieve peace. And he did it in 12 days, folks, from the start of Israel launching its first really major attack, and then Iran retaliating. A lot has gone on. But it was 12 days of war, like full-blown war. And Donald Trump came in, bombed those nuke sites, and all of a sudden there was a peace deal. So I want to get to Jasmine Crockett, because she, according to her, she thinks that she makes the call on Iran per the Constitution. She's not joking. She goes, that's supposed to I'm the one that's supposed to make that effing decision, or at least vote on that. This is what she pathetically said. Really take a listen. Here we go.
And to understand enough about the Constitution to the extent that I'm the one that's supposed to make the fucking decision, or at least get a vote.
Right.
Oh, I can't handle that woman. Crockett. She actually thinks that she is the one who makes the decision regarding the strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Okay. So, call me crazy, but I don't think that she has the proper understanding of the legislative branch. And the fact that people applauded her, I don't know where she was or what. This was just a clip on X. And she had people applauding her. That's deeply concerning. And it goes to show you that there is no shortage of idiots in our nation's capital. Here's what she said on X. Here's yet another reminder that the Constitution is not optional. Congress must authorize military force. That's not correct. Before any president, including Trump, launches a strike. So incorrect. It's blatantly lying to the American people. Must authorize military force. Okay, how come Congress, not a single time did he get congressional approval, Barack Obama, and he managed to launch 26,000 bombs into 7 different countries over the course of 8 years? Not a single approval from Congress. So how was he able to do that? Oh, right, that's right. Article 2 of the Constitution is pretty freaking clear that the president has significant authority over the military, except a declaration of war. So we weren't going to war with Iran. This was simply taking out their nuclear sites. So Jasmine Crockett, which, by the way, the Iran nuclear deal that Barack Obama did, that meant like, hey, you can't expand your nuclear program. Now, there was no position of strength there with Barack Obama, and meanwhile, he was funding Iran to the tune of billions of dollars. So there was no actual teeth to that deal at all. But that deal does say, like, you can't expand your nuclear program. So they violated the terms of their agreement, okay, by building nuclear facilities and building bombs, nukes. So what did Donald Trump go in and do? He got rid of them because guess what? You violated the deal. So according to TNND, Jasmine Crockett on Tuesday shared her disapproval with President Donald Trump over his decision to attack nuclear sites in Iran without congressional approval. Several Democrat lawmakers have been outraged after the Trump attack, and Republicans, I don't know, libertarian type idiots, they are saying that this was unconstitutional. Like, so ridiculous. You're just flat out lying. And they do that because they are all about the clicks. She's all about the clicks and the clout. Crockett and other, non-MAGA talking heads. And I'm sorry, I won't do that to you. On Saturday, we had a Saturday show, and I proved to you that biblically, God has always showed up for Israel, and we shouldn't be afraid. And Donald Trump, we should trust him in that he is not bought by these foreign governments. We know that. We know that he doesn't like foreign war. We know that he didn't get us into a forever war. No new wars while he was president the first go around. He has kept his promises. There's no reason to not trust him. Okay, so she expressed her frustration, writing on X, Congress must authorize military force before the president, including President Donald Trump, launches a strike. Not what the Constitution says. And to understand enough about the Constitution to the extent that I'm the one that's supposed to make the effing decision, she says, or at least get a vote. That's what she said. What? Clearly, this woman doesn't understand a single thing. Okay? She needs to do herself a huge, huge favor and just stop talking. You are never going to be the lead Democrat if you keep going out there and start talking and acting arrogantly. Like, this is just so arrogant. She actually believes that the president of the United States should have consulted her before making this decision. You honestly can't make up that level of delusion. That being said, somebody said it once. She's got a low IQ level. That was President Donald Trump. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to grab some of your chats, smash that like button, and subscribe to the channel. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has her claws out. Do you see the length of her nails? I did not. Every single time, yeah, now I'm seeing it. Every single time I see that on women, I don't know what it is. I think it's more of an attention thing where they want attention, So they'll get like crazy long nails. Now, I'm not lying. I mean, I definitely go get my nails done sometimes. But the crazy long nails, I think it's more of an attention thing. The crazy long eyelashes, definitely an attention thing, which is just anti-biblical, right? It's vanity, I would argue. And yeah, I don't know how she wipes. I'm gonna be honest with you. So every time I see that, I'm just like, how do you function like day to day? How do you do dishes at home? How do you cook? How do you do life? Oh wait, she doesn't do any of that because she's an elitist. Congress only has to declare war. The president can perform military actions in defense of the United States. Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett also installed the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and brought them into our own government agencies in the White House. So this is what's interesting about the Muslim Brotherhood, is like the mafia of elitist and terrorist society. Interesting. See, I don't know the ins and outs. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll look into it. I don't know anything about the Muslim Brotherhood. I probably should. But I do know this. Barack Obama, and the reason why he was constantly doing these bombings, 26,000 during his 8-year term, 7 countries, Syria, Libya, all of it. And he was bombing all of these terrorist organizations. But at the same time, he was funding these terrorist organizations. So similar to that of Russia and Ukraine. Okay, we were spending all kinds of money. I think it was to the tune of $200 billion that we've given Ukraine over this whole Russia-Ukraine conflict. But also, at the same time, the United States was transitioning and has been transitioning, and people in the United States were encouraging other countries, the Green Weenie Club, to transition off of natural gas, coal, and domestic production of natural gas and coal. And they were transitioning off of the energy off of those reliable sources of energy to wind, solar, and all of that. And really what ultimately happens is you bolster Russia when you do those, when you transition to the green weenie crap, because Russia is the only one that is actually producing reliable energy at that point. So at the same time we were funding Ukraine, we were empowering Russia. And this is the formula for a forever war if you fund both sides. So during Barack Obama's time, he was funding Iran to the tunes of billions of dollars. And he was at the same time attacking those terrorist organizations, but we know Iran was funding those terrorist organizations. So everybody was making money, okay, because war is a racket, and people were dying. And what's so beautiful about Donald Trump and this operation, this shows the mighty force of the American army, or of our American service members. And it shows strength, but it shows controlled strength. And it shows that you can perform a military operation, get it done, and not enter into a forever war. And you can negotiate peace. And Donald Trump did that shortly after those strikes, came up with a ceasefire agreement. And I mean, it was quite incredible to see that. And, you know, shame on people who are just anti-American. Like, after seeing that operation conducted, you have got to say, like, damn, America is badass right now. Like, Donald Trump is kind of a badass. He's having Israel and Iran come to the table and negotiate after being at war for a couple of years now. So it can be done. No forever wars, military operations, you can conduct them without forever wars. And how do you do that? You don't fund both sides. Okay. Number one. Number two, you do a calculated, targeted attack, and you do those attacks if that is conducive to your goal, which is America first. And this attack on the nuclear facilities was definitely America first, because it was an imminent threat to America, because they chant things like death to America. Okay. So there's a way to Ukraine. We had no business getting involved, because they're not an ally. Israel is an ally and always has been. And biblically, we are commanded to be allies of Israel, the nation. And Donald Trump went in and he did a targeted attack because it was America first as well. So yeah. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. And be sure to subscribe. Follow me on Rumble. Bye-bye. Love you so much.